I started, one of the things that I shared with y'all was a picture of what a high yielding corn was. That's like, all right, if that's the goal. But one of the things that, how do you judge whether a crop is worth pushing? Because you're gonna, when you plant your crop this year, you're gonna determine at that point in time, because you didn't set a foundation, is it something you're gonna pursue? Is it a crop that you say, hey, I wanna reinvest more dollars in? Or is it a crop that's just gonna be corn? And some of the things that we do at Redwood is first we do that flag trial, we assess their stands. We check that box. Because I kind of follow the box checking system. The next thing we do, and I heard Mr. Thurman talk, he was kind of evaluating tissue samples. I'm a believer in tissue samples. That's one way I can measure something. I have something, we have a history of it. Got almost 30 years of tissue samples. We got probably 20 plus years of tissue sampling every week, once a week. So we have a data set. I wish I had done SAP tests back then because then I'd have a little history. We tried the SAP test years ago. Weren't y'all sending them to Netherlands or something?
Yes.
Then, just, I don't know. I know where I feel comfortable at. So we check the tissue sample, and then we start going, all right, what's the next way in which I'm measuring the crop? I got a shovel. I heard Thurman talk about he has a refractometer. I don't know if he carries a shovel with him whenever he goes in the field, but I got a shovel. I want to dig and see what's happening below ground. And if you're not seeing root systems, and we contribute this, we don't have compaction. I've heard, they talk about, where Josh was talking about helping making soil more user-friendly, in better terms. We don't have as much problem. We got a lot of cover crops, never tilling or no tilling, a little bit of strip tilling, add some fertilizer and some humic acids in that. But dig up and look at your roots. See what's going on early on in the plant growth stage. Here we got this particular plant. All right, the thumb leaf is on this side. This is the first true leaf. Then you got the tiller, second. So that'd be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 there. So we're at roughly V6, and look at that root system. I don't know. Y'all go out and dig up your plants? I see a couple people shaking hands. Most people don't. Most people don't even get out there and pick them. So just to walk out and look at your field, I can't overemphasize that. Y'all have seen these pictures before. When you influence yield, quarter one was planting the crop, get it up, and then working on roots. So anything that you can do to enhance that, whether you're enhancing on, if you're stimulating root activity, you're stimulating biology as well. Keep that in mind. They go so hand in hand. And then, when is girth of the ear determined? We're going to talk about this one in a little while, and then we're surely going to talk about, we'll spend time on that, on this one. They're different quarters. So now we're on quarter number 2. This is the V3 to V5 stage. And trying to associate it from standpoints of with what Genesis Ag is doing, as well as what we're doing, is kind of standard. I mentioned that working with Philip, he kind of helped me get past the yield barrier. And one of those yield barriers was at V3. And just to re-emphasize, if you the rounded leaf, that's the first true leaf, second, third. So we got the collar. All right? So some of y'all might not be familiar. Say, well, we got this leaf here. Well, there's no collar there. And that's what the crop looks like in that stage. When Philip shared with me, he said, hey, what's definition of insanity? Y'all know what it is, just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different. Well, we were doing the same thing over and over again, we were changing hybrids, might be changing a little fertility, but we really weren't changing their yield. And then so the very next thing that we did was micro boom. We put a pound of that out. Philip, I don't remember if we had Carbose in that. I think not at that time. I think it was we were just focusing on micronutrients. He said, Dave, you got to get your plant balanced. And how many times do we hear, I think that term balance is well overused because people aren't explaining what they're talking about. But we got to get our plant nutritionally balanced. So that's outside of adding more nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, sulfur, magnesium, calcium. We're talking about zinc, iron, boron, moly, copper. So we made that application, and it turned into 28.7 bushels. So we got through that sealing. Now, there's one thing that I like to caution people, because what we're doing, we have seen by doing trials, we're picking up 1.9 more rows around of corn. Now, I already told you it's even, so just averaging out. We can do that only when conditions have warranted it. The plant, in order to get the plant to express itself to do more, conditions got to be right. So what do we need? We can't have cold. The plant can't be stressed. Can't be stressed on that. Can't have cold temperatures. We can't have an extended period of time of lack of sunlight. You know, when y'all ever deal with the smoke? Y'all ever dealt with smoke? Is smoke good or bad? Typically bad. I mean, Pioneer did a big thing years ago, because we started getting some smoke a couple years ago. It's like, what in the world? Some of them Canadian fires, why in the world they come to Virginia? It's like, you never would have thought. But so it's got three effects. One, it's reducing sunlight coming down. It's filtering it out, so we're not getting it. Two, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's buffering temperature. So if you get smoke in the heat of the summer, we're not quite as hot, right? Third thing is, it's trapping ozone down in the lower atmosphere. And one thing that during my tours, we were running into, where we're running a lot of smoke into, I guess it was in the Dakotas. We heard where Josh Thurman was talking about Phillips splitting stalks and stuff, and that pith. They were seeing where they had a lot of smoke, that pith was just not in great condition. So I was worried about lodging, because it's taking carbohydrates out of the stalks there. So to help get past that high ozone. We didn't have that problem. We did have the problem like of sunlight. We also had the problem where buffered the temperatures. A good thing, buffering the temperatures. So influencing that, you look at what your forecasts are. If you're expecting it to measure to where you're going to pick up more rows around, you better have good forecasts. The plant's got to be wanting to grow more. If you're thinking about how am I going to stimulate biology and be longevity, this is a process that we do on all our acres. If it is a, quote, environment that we're wanting to push the crop, that is a standalone application. We're putting Carbose in there. We're putting 1 pound to 2 pounds of microboom. I like the liquid because I don't have but so many places for totes on their nurse trailers supporting the sprayer. So we get the dry stuff, throw it on the side of the truck or the trailer, and then we got VitaNterra in there. That is a standalone application for us. Now, if I'm not a guy that wants to weed and feed, but if we run out of time, then we'll start putting that product in with their crop protection side, herbicides. Now, this is the first time I heard Mr. Thurman talk. So he's talking about all these micronutrients and the effects that they're having. We're seeing the benefits because we're doing what he's talking about, manganese. I mean, if you want to control a manganese problem in a glyphosate, you make the application of manganese before you make the spray. And then you'll see a benefit. It can metabolize that chemistry so much better. So if you're in goal and you want to really see something, make a spray pre-herbicide, and then right beside it, you can add it with the herbicide and see which one's going to do the best for you. Nobody wants to run a sprayer too many times. Yeah.
Question here. One thing that's always struck me when you look at a picture like this is you got a lot of bare ground in between, and you're spraying on a foliar nutrient.
Yep.
Do you try to concentrate it over the row?
You know, if I could control my boom to where I could turn that nozzle, that 15-inch, and just band it on that, I would. But the other thing is, if I'm putting Carbose and VitaNterra in there, now I'm also feeding the biology in the middle. So I don't get so hung up on, let me just concentrate it. If you have the ability to do that, I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have many big fields. I mean, this is a 55 acre field. It's the one that's been no-till since the fall of '86. My dad wanted to start that, so it's been no-till ever since. It's the only field that we got true east and west. It is as east and west as you can get. And I'm driving too fast. I can't. I'm trying to cover acres. I don't know what you flying a drone. Who here runs a sprayer? Who runs a sprayer? How fast do you spray? It's okay.
I spray pretty slow.
You play slow?
15 mile an hour.
Okay, the only time my sprayer sees 15 is between 0 and 20. I stay back up. And then I'm slowing up because I'm about to hit the woods again. So, just because trying to cover acres. And because we know we got to be doing stuff. So I can't do that if I could. When we used to do cotton, we had the hooded sprayer. That'd be a cool thing to do then, but nope. Y'all never grown cotton. And that's riding a hooded sprayer, you're going like 2.5, 3 miles an hour. My brother did that. He was going to college and we were growing cotton and he wanted a summer job, so he rode the hooded sprayer to a farm that was their most northern farm, and he got done, he left, and he got pulled over because he was speeding, and the police officer said, "Man, you're going kind of fast." He said, "Officer, it was way faster than that 2.5 mile an hour I've been driving all day." So he got off. He didn't get a ticket. So, but this is a type of yield you can benefit. I'm not going to stand here and say, "Hey, I guarantee you this." If conditions are right, you're going to see this, and that's plants wanting to express itself. If conditions are not there, you will ROI it. But you're not going to see that kind of yield. We're seeing somewhere in that 11 to 12 bushel range on an average. That includes where we do it separately and or tank mixing with the fungicide. Okay? But I'm not a huge fan of weeding and feeding at the same time. This is that same field later on. We're getting that V3 to V5. Another thing that I will in corn production, we're using like VitaNterra and Carbose and microboom to help the plant metabolize the chemistry. Have you ever had an ear of corn where it was 18 and you saw it drop down to 16 or 14? There are times, I know I've caused it myself because we've been spraying and I know we had this situation. One year, we had some Brazilians stop by the farm, and it was like around that 2000, we were still renting some of our pivots off to research companies. They showed up, they wanted to dig some corn. Like, sure. The one field that had a lot of the small plots in, I said, we'll go out there because they have some corn that's not studied for tests. And I'm like, yeah, you can dig some up. Well, one of those guys dug a hole about this deep in the field. And they're pulling ears and looking at stuff. And then when they were done, they're like, "David, this corn doesn't look anything special." And I'm like, I get it, because I didn't plant it. FFR Research Company planted it. They had their hybrid. They had their management. It wasn't anything special. It was just corn. And I'm like, well, after seeing what y'all did, I'm surely not going to take you to one of our high yielding spots, because I don't want you digging up my corn. And then they guilted me into it. They said, well, if you came to Brazil, we'd take you to one of your good spots. So I'm like, all right. So on one of the other fields, so I said, all right, y'all can go out. You can go out there. You can dig. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't dig such a big hole, because I don't want to have to fill it back in. And, you ever dig a hole, you're going to bump. And I said, I said, respect me enough, don't go past 12 rows. Because after 12 rows, we got into, what we were pushing. And they were respectful there. But one of the guys brought an ear back and said, hey, what happened? And it was either 18 or 20, but we lost 4 rows around. And I'm like, holy smoke, what happened? So I got to thinking, and we had already made a herbicide spray. We didn't have as good a section control as we have now. So we had some doubled up, and the plant was past V5. It was closer to V7, and that's what happened. It pinched down. So if you've ever seen it, it can be weather, but more than likely it's because of some injury or trying to metabolize some chemistry. Weather can do it as well. All right? So again, The other thing that's, timing wise, how many of y'all lay nitrogen by? Y'all side dress nitrogen? Anybody side dress nitrogen? Right? And me, the first time I've heard Josh talk, he talked about what adding with his nitrogen. And I was back there and asked him and commented. Every time we add 8 pounds of nitrogen, I got 1 pound of sulfur. So I agree with what Josh said. If it's corn, he talked about what did he say it was? For every 10 inches of rain, you need a ½ pound of boron. I had never heard that before. Do y'all use boron on your corn? How much boron do y'all put out on a corn crop? 1 pound?
1 field.
1 field?
Yeah.
Okay. Last year?
Well, too busy.
Too busy. Okay. If you go to the co-op and ask about boron, what are they going to look at you? You don't need that. Why do we need that? Most of them, oftentimes, but how much do y'all put out?
1 pound.
1 pound.
3 passes.
1 pound, 3 passes?
4 ounces.
4 ounces, 3
4
passes?
ounces, 3 passes.
Okay, and you put on 4 pounds?
Dry.
Dry, okay.
Actual.
Actual pound, yeah. Well, of the 10% more, we play with the dry, but most time it's easier for me just to, as they're mixing up. When we're side dressing corn, we run 2 tankers, and you talk about fast. I set goals. Like this morning, I was playing on the treadmill. Wife says I'm getting fat, so you got to do what you got to do because you don't want her looking somewhere else, But I won't say what I say. But I set goals, and nutrients providing this product, and then we're mixing it up, and days, I'm sure some of y'all do, but one day we were like 22,000 gallons. We got to 28,000 gallons one day. I felt pretty good about myself, but the guys mixing up were like, it was tough because, so we don't use the dry, we're using liquid because it's easier to mix up in their tankers. So for every time we go across the field with nitrogen, we have 8 pounds of nitrogen to 1 pound of sulfur. On corn, we're adding a gallon of boron, and then we add moly, and then we add humic acid, the VitaNterra, on top of that. That is giving us a safener effect for one, and then we know that we're getting the benefit of what he talked about the boron helping, and I am a believer in molybdenum. It's just making that crop more efficient with that nitrogen, without a doubt. So we kind of hit and forgot to say, Carbose, I don't oftentimes use it all the time when we're wide dropping. We like to use that more of a foliar spray. But for some people that want to try that, if that's the only time they're going out in the field from the time that they plant and they're going to side dress, then they're going to spray, and then maybe something later, that gives them a chance to do it. But we're going to spray multiple times throughout the season. So we give more bites of the apple with the Carbose. I don't know, just a picture. What stage of crop is this, you think? 30-inch row corn. Anybody want to guess? I had a chance to go off University and talk to some Canadians. And there was a Professor Tolinar that used to teach there, and I was hoping he was there, but he's since left. He was the guy that came up with the theoretical yield of corn. And what do y'all think corn's potential is today?
Let's say 1,000.
Professor Tolinar said by 2030 something, it was going to be 1,311 bushels. I don't know where the 11 bushels came from. Well, I had a chance to give a talk, and this is at V6. Look how much you talk about what Josh talked about, the leaf wide, the zinc doing all that. Pretty decent, dark color. So it was a slow day. I was riding the irrigation field to just take pictures. Then I fell off, and this is what you see. But no, just sunlight. I mean, when Josh and Philip make sunlight in a jug, are y'all getting that close? But I can't wait to hear y'all's name on it, Josh. Third quarter. I really want to save time for questions, so I'm not rushing. The third quarter, as a grower, this is only for your acres that you think it's not for every acre. All right, this is for the acres that, hey, I think I got a chance to do something that I hadn't done before. Because we like to save some nitrogen late, and that's what this is driven for. Now clearly this isn't at that stage, at V10 to VT, but this was a picture, closest one I had with both the wide drops or the easy drops. There was a pioneer agronomist, Jeff Slusser, years ago, before wide drops started, said, "Hey David, I think I can help you pick up 40 bushels of corn." Would that interest you? If you could pick up 40 bushels of corn, would you take your attention there? Like, how you gotta do it? He said, "I want you to put 100 pounds of nitrogen 7 to 10 days before tassel in a concentrated form." I said, "All right, I got a center pivot, we could fertigate it." He said, "No, it's gotta be in concentrated form." So this is like the 20th of June, 15th of June, hot. We're thinking about harvesting small grain. We had a little bit of rain. It was drizzling, so we couldn't cut wheat. So I'm thinking we purposely saved 100 pounds of nitrogen that we didn't apply because we had a yield goal of, let's say, 350 bushels or so, and we knew we needed roughly 350 pounds. So we only had 200 and some pounds of nitrogen on, so I needed that extra 100 pounds. So we took 2.5 gallon jugs, drilled 3 holes on one side, 3 holes on the other side, filled them up with nitrogen, walked between the corn rows. Have you heard this before, Mason? If your dad asked you to do that, what would you think? You'd say, "Yes, sir." Yep, you'd do it. Well, I did that. I knew from point A to point B, I would need those jugs to get empty, and they still had fertilizer in, a little bit of nitrogen in it. So I either had to control my speed, and we drilled another hole in it. By the time we were done, Lee Woot, one of our co-workers, and my son Barley, we did 10 acres, 2.5 gallon jugs. And what Jeff Slusser was suggesting was that at that stage, remember there was another stage where we can make the ear longer. He said you're going to trick the plant to think that it's not densely populated and it could express itself more. And you could pick more kernels. All right, what do we see? We had to have a control. We have a control. Y'all, I don't do many things without a control. I got to understand where yield's captured and where it's lost. We picked up 4 kernels long. That's a lot of work for 4 kernels. But they were 19.7 rows around, so roughly 20 rows around on 44,000 plants. That turned into like 47, 48 bushels an acre. All we didn't spend any more money. That is another part of our program. I don't fertigate it. Now you guys have got pivots, you can fertigate it, but everybody wants to hit the easy button. It's not going to give you the same effect because it's not tricking the plant. But if this past year in 2024, we had positioned to do this because we do it on a fair amount of our production acres as well. It was dry. We planted the corn. We had 2 tons of chicken litter. Planted our corn, put that same starter on. It was burning up. All it really did was allow me to save that 100 pounds of nitrogen. So that corn, and we still picked 120 to 180 bushel, 120 to 180 bushel dry land corn on 66 pounds of nitrogen, 2 tons of chicken litter, and whatever we're doing to release nutrients in their soil to a crop. I would much rather have added a little bit of nitrogen if I know what I knew now, because we did get a little rain later. We probably would have tried some, but we did 0. So I saved money there. So that's another thing you could do. But if you have a pivot and you want to fertigate it, you'll get some effect, but it's not going to be the same benefit as you get with this. And then today, we are adding phosphorus in that. We're adding zinc in that. Every time we add phosphorus, we need to make sure we got zinc. We're adding VitaNterra. And again, I haven't, because I think everything else spraying we're doing, we haven't been putting the Carbose there. But if you haven't done as many Carbose passes as we have, then that's where I would throw that in there as well. So I'm a believer in it, and it's standard for operating. These are things we don't even test anymore. We know that they work, but you got to prove it on your operation. That's just a picture of us spraying again. I want to get into the fourth quarter. This quarter is one that's overlooked a lot. From a standpoint, the industry has talked a lot about fungicides. They don't play as much trying to put some nutrition in there, but let's do fungicide and insecticide. Their competition is the untreated acre, so they're trying to do it. So if you're going to make an application late in that arena, you need to be sure that you're getting your pH checked correctly. And don't check the pH of your water. You need to check the pH of your solution before it leaves the sprayer or the airplane or the drone. Check it before, play with it, add some citric acid. Do y'all have a pH adjuster?
Yes,
What's it called?
ready, yeah.
Ready, man?
Yeah, it's got negatives and it's
Okay.
it's got the water buffer.
All right, I didn't know that. Remind me that when I make my next order.
It's the first time you've asked.
Yeah. See, you gotta ask the right questions, don't we? Yeah. I'll answer any question, you just gotta ask it, and ask me the right one. But, will it buffer it to raise it or lower it, or is it just lowering pH? It's just lowering it? Don't just check the pH of your water, you gotta check it, add the product, add stuff, then check the pH after, because a lot of times you start adding humic and fulvic acid, it's gonna drive pH up. Makes no sense to me why an acid does that. So you wanna know what your final spray solution is, all right? Let's get into a picture here. Aerial applications. I don't care how you're doing it, and you can even do it with a ground rig. The benefits, and you'll see what some of the benefits are, but I have been a plant health, fungicide, making sure we're insect free. We're playing with the brick stuff. We're learning a lot more about them and kind of excited about some of the things we've seen. Do y'all ever get spider mites? You irrigated guys. Have y'all ever had spider mites in the irrigated field? One year, I know y'all get stink bugs, because I've been in too much of this country and been amazed at how many growers don't know what stink bugs are and don't know what the damage they do. But one year I said, I am going to go totally against stink bugs, and we sprayed pyrethroids every 10 days, 2 weeks. What do you think I caused? Spider mites. I'd never seen so many spider mites in the irrigated field. Thought for surely they'd get that fungus, the water would kill them, but we created a problem. So you gotta have good stewardship, is what I'm getting at. We're playing with these, we're trying to do more to where we can cut out the insecticides. I'm excited about when we get there. Cutting out the systemic fungicides, I feel we can control the disease portion. I'm looking out for the plant health benefit. Now, Philip and them gotta throw a curveball. It started out with, what was it, Formula 88, right?
Right.
And then it became Instago. When Philip came to the farm one day, he said, hey, we got this kind of like natural fungicide. What is your standard protocol? What are you doing? Because he wanted to put it up against what we were doing, and like, man, if you're going to put something up and you're going to outperform a product. So then not only did we try it, but then he had some a group try it, gave off a lot of research, and it was outperforming the industry standard. So that has become part of our arsenal now, just trying to tweak it a little bit more to get some more stay green. Because you heard, this was the first time I've ever heard somebody say, if you can keep corn every day past black layer, you can pick up 4 bushels. I don't know that I would want to say 4 bushels. I'd want to say a percentage of yield, because 4 bushels on 100 bushels is one thing. 4 bushels on 200 bushels is another. I think, so I don't know. I've never looked at it, but we do know that we can take 113-day corn, or corn that gets to 2,700 GDUs to black layer, and it might be 2,900 GDUs to black layers when we're done. So that's really influencing some days. And then I'm sure we've all shortened it up somehow too, which that's never a good day. But this time in aerial applications is this is where, if I had to tell you things to walk away with, one was the flag trial, other one, we talked about Carbose, VitaNterra. This one, you can really impact weight on corn in a big way, because y'all, I think 61 pounds, what you talk about, you're not gonna get a frost. Then if you not only can use an Insco product to help the plant stay disease-free, and then you can nutritionally enhance and get more starches in that kernel. I showed you what nutrients we're looking at. It was funny hearing Thurman talk about those same type. We weren't talking balances, he was just talking about nutrients that are influencing it. So I got way more conversations I'd like to have with him, because I didn't hear him say the word balance many times. Did y'all? Did I miss it? But this, again, whenever we do something, I gotta have a control. This is the same corn hybrid. You got these 3 ears, and they're not from the second ear plant. This is managed one way, this was managed intensively. The only way we can judge something if it works is to do it. You wanna guess the difference in the yield of those two? What was different? It all had the same fertility. We just went with a regular generic fungicide program, none of the additives to it. We were targeting pests. We had the same amount of fertility, nitrogen-wise. This particular side, it had the late wide drop pass. The other one had the fertility all put out at the V5, and then we fertigated. So it was half a pivot, and we had one section of it one way, and then the other side. So that's how I can control these type of tests. It was a smaller pivot, wasn't one of our larger pivots. 454 to 586. Look at the difference in test weight. So when somebody says you cannot influence the crop down the road, just remember this right here. I mean, this is real. And what the things that contributed to it, we've talked about biology, but we've talked about it below ground. Now, there's also biology on the leaf. And that's where, when I start thinking about VitaNterra, and I think about Carbose, one is the sugar source. The VitaNterra, being that it has the fulvic acid in it too, is helping feed whatever's on the leaf. And that's helping getting the nutrients into the plant. And again, that's the program. Now, there's it wasn't just Carbose and VitaNterra, it was, y'all still make kryptonite. No. Has anybody used kryptonite? Have you used the new version this year, or was it the older version before?
This last year.
Yeah. There's a tremendous benefit to the new stuff, particularly on shelf life. I got an old one and a new one. The new one's still in solution. You know what the old one looks like. You got to use it up. It's a product. So if you haven't explored that, it both has the Carbose and VitaNterra in it. So I know what this is what's the result of it. I got other pictures over time. And I guess the reason it's not just to show you pictures. I want y'all to see the progression that we have done since I'm working with Philip. This was a year we first did the B3 primer pass. And there were other things that we noticed. And I don't remember what hybrid, it was like 113 or 14 day. I don't remember the moisture, but I do remember we were starting to see some stay green. We were making fungicide sprays, nowhere near the management we are today, but just some observations. So this is kind of our path with Genesis Ag and things that we're learning. And then we got to, this was 2011. And I don't show many yield, this same field. This is the same field here. This one again was much later. This was a high yielding spot. I think that combine picture, if I had to take a guess, was somewhere right here. You can see where the pivot goes around. We have the dry corners, a little dry here. I'd have to check, see what we did there. You see some yields here, but you'd say, well, why is such a big difference here? Why was this purple, this just blue, and then all this? Well, this was just production corn. We can't manage all of it as high because I can't afford it all to go down. Because I'm going to show you what happened. There was a hurricane coming in. You know, one of the things we deal with more often than y'all do. Clearly, y'all get these little spin tops really fast, throws a lot of stuff out of the way. We get the slow moving named thunderstorms that just can do devastation. We did a check here, but then hurricanes coming and the farm, there's a road here and the farm all in here is about 60 some acres. There's a widow. It's her only source of income outside of her late husband's Social Security. So it's like, we need to pick our corn before it blows over, because we knew we were going to lose a crop. So we did right. We picked our corn, just barely finished it up. Then this is what we saw the next day. So this is us picking it before. This is what it looked like after. So going back from 2007 to this, now look at the green there. Clearly there's advantages to green, right? Because we're putting more weight in the kernel. We're delaying till GDUs to black layer. But you get a green plant, you get 70 some mile an hour winds, what's going to happen? Look at this right side. It's going to blow over because it's a big sail. It's just going to capture it all. But this is 21.2% moisture, y'all. Would you even think about picking corn? Would you even thought it was time to pull the combine out? Y'all are getting quiet. So we get. I mean, well, first of all, it's tall. You think about solids. That was a Pioneer 2080. I don't know if this is 2088 or 2089. And I don't remember what the year was. It's not relevant. But one of the cool things was we were seeing numbers that we had never seen before. You know, you see. All right, how many of y'all look at your yield monitor? I already heard some. You don't believe yield monitor sometimes. So, are you the one running the grain cart?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And he's always asking for yields, right?
Unfortunately.
If y'all ran grain equipment, they're going to sync all of that together one day. So we got to work on that, right? But how many times y'all want to take a picture of your yield monitor, so you jerk on the handle, take a picture, text it to your buddy? Or you've been the other end of it. You could receive the text and you say it's a bunch of bull. Well, we were seeing, this was in 2011, we were seeing some yields in the yield monitors like, I don't know, that's just a bunch of grain sitting on the head. And then all of a sudden it goes in. If you're in your fields and you get to where you're seeing a yield and it's staying there for a little while, that is your new yield goal for that field. That's how we push our yield goals. It's not that, hey, all of a sudden we want to have some super high yield. We're seeing it maintained for a while, and then boom, now we're going about and we're striving for it. Do we achieve it? Not always, rarely. But it's been thanks to Philip working with them, it's been helpful. This was, I don't remember what year, but Invigor8, this is 1197, but what I want to get you to is the not that one. This one here, 2013. I had a goal. And when you see that ear of corn, what stands out? Or doesn't stand, I'm sorry. No dent. I had a goal. I talked with Philip, I talked with Paul, my agronomist. Like, what can we do? And then it can be done. My daughter and myself, we hand shelled. We saved some corn so it would feel dry. So it was 15.5, it was really 15.9 moisture. And then we hand shelled it. We separated the rounds from the flats from the dented ones. 26% of them were completely rounded. 26, yeah. 51% were round to flat, and then the rest of them had a dent. and then you see what we did on test weight. And this picture was from that moisture, but we left some rows out. And that's, I'll need a back, I'm sorry, I'm having to back up. Look at this corn here, I forgot to share that. This was 28%, but look at it at 15.2. We left 32 rows behind it. We went and picked, and then came back. Look how green it still is. If your plant's dying premature, there's things you can do to help along with it. And I'm a firm believer in what we're doing biologically. I'm not gonna say it's all nutrition. We're allowing it to live longer. Well, we are making it live longer. And then you saw where we were this past year. That's just their combine sitting there waiting for, y'all ever end up waiting for trucks, grain carts, or anything like that? I got a cousin, he bought he bought a 780, because he doesn't run a grain cart, so he wanted a 400 bushel grain tank, and all he does is fill it up, sit and wait longer. I think smoke a cigarette. I can kid about him, he's a neighbor, he's always the one that's always looking on the other side of the fence. Do y'all ever make mistakes? I can tell you a lot of them, but a couple of them in particular, this goes back to, I guess it would go back to Q1. You're planting corn. I would love to walk behind your planter. So I'm going to give you a hint right now. If all your T-handles are in the same notch, you're not paying attention to your planter. I have put the puck kit on our planter. I have one row that's 3 holes different than the others. I got some of them that are just 1 hole, but it's 3 notches different than the others. So, are all your T-handles in the same hole? When you start planting corn, see, he's writing it down. When y'all start planting corn, take whatever your closing system is, ratchet strap it up in the air so you can look at every row and then check to see what the depth is for every row, and then you set it down, and then you check it again after you slap it down. All your T-handles should never be in the same spot. So when I start planting their corn, I'm checking. When I mark them, so I know where the baseline is, and if I say, hey, we need to go a ½ inch deeper, then I know each one needs to go 2 holes. Well, one day I changed the depth on the planter, and then I got to planting corn, and I stopped, I check a couple rows, say, okay, I'm good. I don't check every row like I do when we start planting. And then I planted 136 acres, and we stopped to fill up with some of our products, and usually when we're just filling up with fertilizer, I can walk around the planter and check things out. And I walked out in the field, and I saw a kernel of corn on top of the ground. I'm like, that shouldn't be there. And then I go a little further in, and I'm scratching, and I see some corn just barely covered up. Uh-oh. So then I go back behind the planter, and I obviously didn't lock one of those T-handles in, and it went to the shallowest spot. So I planted 136 acres with 1 row just barely covering up. Is that a good day? Not a good day. So what did I do? I'm calling neighbors. Y'all got a 1-row planter? No, everybody had 2 and 4-row planters. Nobody had a 1-row planter. Found a 1-row planter in Wisconsin at some machine shop. They were taking John Deere units. Called them up, said I need a 1-row planter. Said, all right, we got one. Said, all right. He said, do you want a no-till culture on it or not? I said, I didn't know it was an option. Sure I do. So I called it and said, all right, when will it be ready? He said, it's going to take us a day to crate it up. I said, all right, the next day I'll have a freight truck up there to pick it up. Call freight quote, send the truck. He said, well, you got to pay for it. I said, all right, I'll give you a credit card. I said, I'll have a truck there. He said, no, you got to wait 7 days till your credit card clears. Have y'all ever heard of such? Credit cards got to clear? And I didn't understand that. But then after, I said, well, how else can I do it? He said, well, you can wire us money. So this was on a Thursday. I'm like, all right, well, it's too late in the day to get to the bank, so I'll go to the bank Friday, we'll wire you money. I get to the bank Friday, I call them up. Well, the girl that does that, she's sick today. Nobody else can do it. So now it's Monday before I get it done, and we get the unit that following Friday. So my Miss Sandy's got a 1025 little yard John Deere tractor at 3-point hitch. I got a 1-row planter unit on, and I'm planting 136 acres. My fat butt's on this tractor doing that. So, the reason I'm sharing this story with you is we use it as a learning opportunity. Doesn't that sound good? It's a learning opportunity. Kind of like you ever have a skip somewhere, oh yeah, we did that on purpose. Tuition, yeah. I told y'all I pulled tissue samples. Now, we're able to make an application, pull a tissue sample on the crop that's what we think is the right time, and now we got a crop that's two weeks behind almost, and pulling tissue samples and learning from that. How did we influence it? Unfortunately, what do you think a row of corn did 2 weeks behind the rest of them? It looks like a stalk of wheat growing really tall. It fell over, never put on ear, but I did accomplish what my goal was, to keep weeds out. Because I knew what was going to happen. We were going to get an influx of weeds because all that sunlight hit the ground. Both, I heard Josh Davis talk about it, and Thurman talked about the sunlight. Sunlight hitting the ground is wasted energy. But we use it as that learning, and we were learning how we were influencing the crop vegetatively growing with this micro booms, with the VitaNterra, fungicides. It was just a great learning chance for me. So pretty much of the things that I've shared with y'all, hopefully you've got a couple tidbits, but I think you've heard, if y'all are not using some of Genesis Ag products, I have a history, and I don't do anything just because it's going to put money in Josh or Philip's pocket. It's going to put money in my pocket, and that's what we're doing it for. That's why, for a grower, we all have a passion of farming, right? You don't like getting up early, working late, getting rained on, busting your knuckles. If we're not making money, we're not going to do it but so long. And if you haven't tried any of their chemistry, I would challenge you to try it. They got some of the strangest names of products. They got cool animals on some of them. I still get a chuckle out of the immense with the sea turtle on it. So, and I remember those days when they were coming up with them. You know, the toucan Sam bird and all that. So, and then me exploring with their other brands or their crop nutrition. Had great success with them, particularly like y'all hadn't talked about the stable products like Stable B and some. I don't know if you're going to talk about those today, but I mean there are benefits to those. I'm liking what we're seeing because we talked about boron. Thurman talked about boron. Y'all are using some. Not all of y'all are using some. So I don't know what my time is like, Josh.
You're good.
But I want to. Well, yeah, we did. That was 40 some minutes, so that's about right. Because I wanted to make sure I respond well to questions. And I'm sure y'all have some questions, and if I can't answer them, I'm going to ask Philip to answer it. All right? Yeah.
What component of water do you think is keeping your corn green so long?
What component of water?
How much does that have to do with it?
Yep, irrigation wise. The crop never has a bad day. Irrigation for us, we were using moisture probes. Well, first of all, agronomists is running calculators, evapotranspiration, water use, particular GDUs. We had so much water expected use. Then when we got later in the season, it kind of diminished. We lost some satellite information because the company got bought and sold. So we went with moisture probes because Paul's a believer. We were believers that most corn needs 0.3 of an inch of rain a day, 0.33 inches. Then based on evaporation, then you needed more water to replace it. Now we went with the moisture probes, and sometimes that's a little tricky because you gotta find out where to position the moisture probe in whatever predominant soil type is. We're using the moisture probes to tell if we're irrigating too much to see if we're pushing salts down their profile, so we know to slow up. When we're vegetatively growing, I want it too wet to plant, just barely too wet to plant. When we get into reproductive stage, we're gonna be just perfect planting conditions. I want that kind of moisture there. And there are times, you know, most folks say as you plant it thicker, the evapotranspiration doesn't change. I will disagree with it. There are times I think we're 0.55 inches of water a day. And we're really cranking. So we're big on moisture probes, and we're big on walking fields. This past year, we couldn't keep up. I got one pump on 2,800 gallons a minute, and another one's like 1,800 gallons a minute, and another one's 1,100. We just couldn't keep up because we just didn't have any rain. We started out great, got a little rain, then turned dry, and pivots never cut off. And we're not regulating water because if I don't suck it out of the river, it's going to the Atlantic Ocean. This past year, since our first pivot was put in '85, this made the 7th time we had to stop pumping water because the salt moved up. And it's never hurt beans. It's usually, never hurt corn. It's usually soybeans. So we also, you know, they were talking about chlorine and stuff. We'd look at sodium. If you saw my soil sample levels, it probably had a lot higher sodium levels, and the base at sodium might have been higher than what y'all are accustomed to seeing. It usually leaches out because it's also leachable. We get enough rain because we're in that 44-inch rain average a year. Last year we weren't there. Always average out. We're gonna get a year where we're gonna have a lot. So did I answer your question on that?
Kind of. Let's say you have a high rainfall year. And you got the area in the corners. How big a difference is that with the state green and harvest?
Yeah, you'll see it. You will see it. So if you got high rainfall where we're not pumping much water, then we don't see a big difference. But where we do, like if we're getting, because I figure we're taking about 21 inches of rain, water to push out a big crop. If we're in that 18-inch rain, you'll see a difference. Test rate, there's going to be a difference. Test rate. Probably be higher than most folks because of the nutrition side of it, plant health. It is green longer, no doubt. I guess I wish I had some pictures of some of their dry land. How green it stays compared to. It's not quite as dramatic as this irrigated, but she is significantly green. Yeah.
Is there anything that I can do from an ag retail perspective for these guys that, like, you know, we dabble in, you know, mirroring potash, DAP, anhydrous 32, stuff like that, but there's a bunch of different things that we can do that we can't do because it takes, you know, storage and stuff. Is there anything that I can do to help these guys that are...
Anytime you sell a load of MAP or DAP, have it coated with some kind of humic acid. Josh, do y'all sell dry humic acid?
No.
Yeah, not yet. It's all liquid. Can you impregnate VitaNterra on
Yes.
fertilizer? Okay, so you do that.
Yeah.
So make sure it's coated with humic acid, VitaNterra. Make sure it's on there. It's going to chelate it. You'll get rid of the dusting for another thing. You'll see a better uptake. I really wish Thurman was here because I really wanted to quiz him on this potash thing. Because you said you put a bunch of potash out. I'm a believer in get that base out of potash as high as your wallet can handle it. And I know that's just right up your alley.
I was gonna say, he'll for better or for worse, he'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I pressed him more on that in the hallway,
Uh-huh.
and it sounded like, if I was understanding him correctly, it sounded like he's not against high base at K, it's how you get there, and chlorine, salt, in the process of getting there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
that is 100% correct. It's the KCL that's the issue.
Because
Because of
of
the
the
whole
problem
language.
with getting there with that product.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
in this environment, I would agree. In my environment, because the chlorine is going to leach out, I'm not worried about it. I want to build it up. And then the other thing is, anybody here do cover crops? just a couple. If if what he's talking about is a problem, you just need more biology in there. It's, as we make applications, we're killing biology. But if we have a higher number, and we're killing a percentage of it, then all of a sudden now we're kind of, I don't want to say we're overcoming it, but our penalty isn't as great. I am a huge believer in base out of potash. And I heard somebody say, well, oftentimes when you get your base out of potash, you start lowering your CEC. So I pulled out a couple of fields, I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing, I mean, we got base ats in 14%. And my CECs don't fluctuate. I'm not seeing it, so I'm not gonna argue, it's just on air soils I haven't seen it. So, but from a retailer standpoint, as you're selling product, have it VitaNterra treated. Just get a tote, get some VitaNterra, put it on there. From a seed standpoint, we already talked about that. Just make sure you guys get good quality seed. We have folks that are retailers and they're testing the seed so they know what seed goes to their better growers. Now, seed, and then whenever, I mean, I don't know if y'all have their product in your warehouse, but have some. I like of the things that my brother, you ever have battles in the operation? When you got multiple generations, I know you do, but if you got brothers or something, sometimes just picking one's battle makes it so much easier. We used to we used to seed all our soybeans with a no-till drill. What is a drill? Controlled spill. We know the advantage of singulation. We know that. That is outside of planting early. If you can singulate soybeans, that's the next best thing you can do to improve yield. Cleaning a drill is so much easier than cleaning a row planter. I'm in the seed business. We're planting beans behind wheat. We're running 2 stripper headers harvesting wheat, so they can cover a lot of ground in a day. And you got a 40-foot air seeder. He oftentimes can't cover the same amount of acres as 2 harvesters are cutting. I'm wanting to know, why is the planter not caught up with the combines? And then I asked my brothers, like, hey, we're giving up too many bushels because we're using a controlled spill. We need to go to a row planter. You talk about a battle. He's like, you're already fussing at me about not being caught up with you, but when we're running 17 different soybean varieties, that's a lot of cleanups. It takes 20 minutes at the longest to clean a drill, and then you're spending an hour or something to clean a row planter. Well, combines are getting further ahead. So we pick battles, and we pick it. Bean yields have done nothing but go up. I'm waiting for them to plateau. Every year, since we've done it for 3 years, their yields have gone up. And we're putting more stuff in furrow. But the one thing that my brother likes the most that we do, he likes Carbose. It's something about it. He likes it. Whether he likes the smell, I have no clue. But it is so, and I know that he sees the advantage to it because he's not getting, we don't do the liquid, like I said, microboom, we do the dry. We do that, and then he's spraying sprays on his herbicides on the beans, and we don't see the yellow flashing or anything. So he knows something's working. So, picking battles. So having some of those go-to products that just make good walking sense. And then the other thing, there's only so many hours in a day. So if you ever done a flag emergence trial,
Nope,
I would challenge the 2 of y'all to figure it out and try it.
I've done it.
Oh, it's not fun.
That sucks.
It does, being out there twice a day. And one of the things that Thurman was talking about, being out in your field. And he says he gets out there and closes his eyes. I was surprised he didn't say he laid down or something like that. I don't know him well enough to kid like that. Get your
I'll tell him for you.
tell him. Get your wife to walk out in your cornfield. Couple times. Just let her go and ask her what she sees. y'all, she'll see things that you never saw. It is so amazing. And if you want to do the flag trial, if you got grandkids or little kids, they're good at finding those little spikes beside the ground. It's like a game to them. So, but no, seriously, get your wife out there. You be his eyes, but if y'all never got your spouse to walk out in the field, you know, they don't like it when it's pollinating, don't get them out there then. But that's not a bad exercise. All right, what other question? Yeah.
What about, you hear about micronutrients and stuff like that, so like zinc, boron, and with dry. I mean, that's always something, usually I do it, and I always tell people that want to do it, I'm like, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it year after year, you're not gonna look at any results until like 4 years, but I don't know that to be true.
Every time we've just done 2 tons of chicken litter. So after this year, every acre except for where the Williamsburg, where Jamestown is, because I don't want to deal with the phone calls about this stuff stinks. So that's a battle I want to pick. Every acre will have had chicken litter. I am a huge proponent of zinc. So whenever we add phosphorus, we know we want so much zinc to go along with that. So that goes, and they just, when they're blending it, they're just injected in. We do the, what is y'all's zinc product? You got zinc and there's a couple other ones in it. Josh, help me out. Human, yeah. If you're not gonna go out and get them to do that, and you need more zinc, you gotta make that application. One of the biggest things that we have seen that if I had to say pushing yields up, phosphorus is key. Phosphorus to me is the driving force. That's the one that's making that beat to me start. The zinc is helping that beat for the biology. That one field R6, we went from 7 point some parts per million of zinc to 14.5. Yields are still, I mean, the APH of that farm is still climbing. There's that, what are we doing? We're just feeding more biology with it. It's like candy, it's like Mountain Dew to your grandkids or candy to your kids. It's real. So however you can get it done.
So are you stripping a lot of yours then, or?
Stripping?
Yeah.
We run, as in like a strip till?
Yeah.
Yeah, we run a.
Making you nervous.
Got people laying in fields.
Be like Josh Thurman out there.
Got your wife out there with you.
But we can't strip till in the fall because we're trying to plant wheat, then it gets wet. And then the other reason we don't want to put our potash out any nitrogen or sulfur because we got a chance of losing it. So we strip till in the springtime. Anytime it dries up between now and corn planting, we're going to start running strip till, soil water. In the strip, you know, I think it was Thurman talked about AMS on soybeans. If y'all aren't doing that, when I think about the Revita N, and here I'm behind y'all. I know, I realize the ship has sailed. I'm rowing a rowboat trying to catch up as fast as I can. We're going to put Revita N when we're doing our pre-emergent stuff on some ground, and we're going to put some in furrow. I just feel like it makes good walking sense. Philip showed me in 2011. I'm a slow learner sometimes. So strip tilling, we'll do that in the springtime, but we'll have humic acid there. They'll chelate the potash, AMS. Where we've done chicken litter, we don't put any out. We're still going to put zinc out there. So there are times I just want cheap zinc. Just give me something cheap. Yeah. If we're doing that, if you're blending it up, give me cheap. And then we're going to tissue sample, and then boom, there's human BMZ. Because that's got humic acid, boron, zinc, and moly, right? Copper. Does it have your VitaNterra in it?
Zinc, boron, and copper.
Zinc, boron, and copper. Yeah, BMZ. Okay. So yeah, that answer your question? Yes, no?
Yeah, does broadcast do the same?
I'm not a broadcast guy. Other than, well, let me back up. We're VRT, airline, I'm gonna fertilize for our corn, because another thing, he talked about that rhizosphere process. Plants can be luxury consumers of nutrients. Plants love potash. I showed you on that 150 bushel corn, it takes 175 pounds of potash to do that. Corn loves potash. It'll take up more than it needs. And I'm all about it because my rotation is corn, small grain, double crop beans. I put all their potash in front of my corn crop. It's going to pick up more than it needs. When it dies, it's still in the stalks. It's going to release for the small grain. It's going to be there for soybeans. If we need phosphate, that goes in front of our small grain, and we'll VRT that. But outside of, that's the only two broadcast applications we have. Is potash on there. We strip, it's a solid rate of strip tilling, and then we VRT more on top of that for our small grain and double crop beans. Because we're putting roughly 100 pounds AMS. We were doing 100 to 150 pounds of MAP, and then 300 pounds of the bad stuff, potassium chloride. And then we're humic acid. We're pulling the MAP out, but we're still adding the zinc. We're still adding AMS to it. But for you bean guys, AMS, do that early, because what's it going to do? Because you're feeding biology. Now we're planting earlier. I trust y'all are planting some beans before you plant corn. It's not warming up yet, but you're giving it some sugar. Some nitrogen. You got some sulfur in there. So I am a firm believer in that AMS stuff on beans. It's not going to make the beans tall because it's in ammoniacal form. It's not in nitrate form. So, called me one day and said, Dave, that last load of fertilizer we sent you, where'd it go? Did you use it? Yeah. Where'd you put it? R18. There was silence on the phone because he knew that was a high yield environment field. I'm like, why? He's like, well, guy made a mistake. You were asking for so many elemental pounds of zinc. Well, he might have went a little more than 3 times that. All right. So that's not as much a problem as where I doubled up. So now, I literally went and pulled, I said, I'm talking to my agronomist. Did I talk to you about it, Philip? I don't remember. It's like, what in the world do I do? Because now we just put roughly 75 to 80 elemental pounds of zinc on some ground in a strip. Like, this might not be the best thing. And Paul's like, do not plant in that strip, plant to the side. I'm like, well, of course, I got to try some. Well, I pulled a soil sample and I had a higher zinc than I did phosphorus. There's no way those elemental pounds did not move parts per million that high. I just hit a pearl. But it makes for a great slide. Like, hey, you can move the needle. But we were concerned. To this day, I still got much higher zinc levels in those strips because we know where the strips are, because we move over, we go back, we move over, we go back. We're at a 5-to-1 ratio, phosphorus to zinc. I'm picking tremendous corn out of that. So I'm not going to say that there's a point in where we've gone too far to where it's just not making money, but it hasn't hurt us. I planted corn on the strip. I planted some off the strip. I couldn't tell the difference. But you talk about a wide leaf and a dark leaf, it was black. Yeah, it was, yeah. Now, we wasn't the highest yield we had, but we didn't, So I'm not so worried about it. I think the industry is saying you want to be in that 12 to 20 to 1, somewhere in that range. A lot of times I like to hear 12 to 1, phosphorus to zinc. I personally want to be 10 to 1 or tighter. And it's not that hard to do, particularly if you're stripping. But then the other thing, things that we do is we got the zinc in the strip, we got zinc in our starter. Whether you put zinc in furrow, and then if you're spraying zinc, and then zinc on seed if you want to do that. There's all kinds of avenues to get your zinc up there. How many of y'all, I guess I'm curious, how many of y'all have used the Invigor8 product, the seed treatment? Got a couple? That's y'all all use Pro Boxes? Most of y'all use Pro Boxes? Yeah, and you're filling your planter, so either get a Pro Box treated. I know Philip, he's been out farming, we got an electric cement mixer. I mean, we got a big commercial treater, but there are times we do individual bags. If you hadn't tried it, y'all don't do the dry anymore, do you?
No, but we do have the box to box, so you can take a Pro Box and
Uh-huh.
put it into an empty
Yep.
Pro Box and then go back in the original Pro Box. It works pretty slick.
I just think of their flagship products, VitaNterra and Carbose, they're big flagships, and then the Invigor8. I'm gonna be bold to say, down the road, Instago is gonna be another flagship product for them. It's gonna set the standard for the fungicide. Might turn them upside down. I've seen too many results. They compared it to Veltima the first year, then the second year was against the Miravis one. I don't remember which one goes on corn. And then last year they compared it to Veltima. Every year it's outperformed. It's like, how, this is awesome. So, other questions? Come on now.
When you impregnate your fertilizer, do you have a certain rate, or are you just looking for coverage with that humic?
Just coverage. I mean, now, it depends on, there are times we just use a humic acid and I say I want 10 pounds. I've done some dry stuff, broadcast, and we put 400 pounds out. Just see what goes on. But it's a totally different one. But when we start doing any foliar stuff and fertilizer, I like their product. But when we're doing with strip till, I think I've never had Jimmy Ward do the VitaNterra on air potash. We'll try it.
Don't think it'll mess with your strip tills, make it too sticky or anything?
No. Y'all got any answers to that? Is what rate of VitaNterra to put on a ton of fertilizer?
Depends on how the bill's made and
How
what the size is.
All right, if it's that crap, you don't want us to use potassium chloride, and then AMS.
We'd be about 1.5 gallons at the time on the KCL,
Okay.
a gallon on the map.
Okay, and it's not gonna make it sticky or nothing. My biggest problem, I will never use urea in a strip till. And I imagine y'all don't ever have to worry about hot, as in hot temperature map, where it just came out of the factory. They have a plant down in North Carolina, so their stuff comes straight from there, goes to Nutrien. It might just come off the truck and they're blending in their thing. Hot map and certain products don't lend itself to flowing. So it's just like urea if you get a lot of moisture and humidity. So I will not run urea through their soil water. Well, we do have variability, and I contribute partially, even though we're getting it to come up uniformly, there's variability in that microclimate around the seed. There is more biology in this one versus the next one versus the next one. Now, I wasn't prepared for this. I have a presentation that talks about that, also talks about that on soybeans, the difference there. Part of where we've seen it is that just singulation. It's not about emergence. Emergence is number one on corn. Singulation is number one on soybeans. If you check the box on emergence on corn, then your next thing is spacing. How close and what kind of gap do you have? Because if ever there's a gap, you're going to see a bigger ear than you are where they might not have that gap. So I spend a lot of time on my planter, y'all. I mean, insane amount of time. I don't want anybody around me for the first day when we're planting corn, because I'm going to spend that whole day getting that planter right. Then it's game on. But singulation is the next step. Then, if you really want to get particular, you can't see it after you've planted it, but placement of how the seed's oriented is the next step. That's where when you think future, they were talking about future. We're not far from all kernels being positioned in the same direction. If you're willing to pay for the technology. I mean, it's already out there now. I wanna know why the difference is. And to tell you why the difference, next time you do that, I don't know if you still have it, take the bottom third, the middle third, and the top third, and separate those and see where your weight's influence too. You'll see a difference there as well. You got that 12 ounce here, you got the 9 ounce here. What gave you the 12 ounce? Was it 1,000 kernel weight? That's the other thing we need to, don't forget test weight, y'all. Forget test weight. It's 1,000 gram kernel weight. That's what we need to be focusing on. And then you'll start to see what you saw. Soybeans. I hadn't spent much time on soybeans. I'm a RizNate guy. We're a Carbose guy. We're a VitaNterra guy on soybeans. Soybeans, you want to focus on the pods that make you the most money, and they're the bottom third of your plant. Remember that. Do what you can to influence that bottom third. Then the next third is the next one. The top third is the last. This coming year, take some of those plants, make sure, check, you plant beans too, Mason? All right. I was in Kentucky. Funny, I wish Thurman was here. I was in Kentucky, and I was walking a field with some growers, and I'm like, who planted these soybeans? You know, nobody's gonna say I did if you do like that. And eventually, it was not the owner, not his sons, it was one of their employees said, I planted the beans. I said, you need a pay raise. Now, of course, now the owner's like, whoa, we don't need to be giving him more money. The reason I mention that is because it was the best simulated field I've walked in all year. And I told him, I said, all right, to justify you getting your pay raise, you go pull some plants, and I'm going to challenge you to do that this year, Mason. Pull plants that are evenly spaced, and then go pull some plants that are too close together, and count pods. You're going to, with hands down, you're going to have way more pods on the ones evenly spaced. They're the ones giving you the most bushels. And then those that aren't evenly spaced. That's going to make you do one thing. What is the problem with planting beans? Is his right thumb. What does his right thumb do? What does the right thumb do in your tractor? Controls the speed. So we got to either slow down, we got to figure out what we can do to best simulate our beans. If you got a 3-hole plate, throw that thing in the trash. Go get you a single-hole plate. I'm telling y'all, this is how, if you're running the others, keep the precision thing, don't go changing that, but get rid of the 3-hole plate or 2-hole plate, go to a single-hole plate. If you're going too fast because it says you can't do it, slow down. Simulate, you're gonna make money by slowing down. But where I was gonna go, check the size of beans on the bottom third of your plant. They're way bigger than the top 2/3, way bigger than the top third. Because that top third, you're just running out of days to maturity, particularly for y'all, because y'all are growing 1s and 2s. And then you're trying to get them out before you start shelling corn before the snow comes in or you get a frost. That's your homework. Pull some plants, count some pods. Say, hey, look, and then watch the speed. Play with it. Y'all plant like you normally do, flag it, slow down. Watch that simulation on your tractor or your monitor. I went on a tangent there, sorry about that. You get chasing rabbits sometimes.
About planting depth on beans. Deeper is better.
You know, I was with a group, and the farmer said that he got the best nodulation when he planted beans 2 inches deep. And so I heard that, and so how do you check that? So tissue samples are going to tell me. So we did some seed depth changes, and I can't duplicate it. So I want them up uniformly, you know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. If I had my druthers, I'd plant 1 1/4 inch. 2 inches. The other thing is, I'm no-till. Do y'all deal with crusting? If you deal with crusting, then you know that's a real problem. You ever run a rotary hoe? Y'all even own a rotary hoe anymore? Yeah, I used to like running a rotary hoe because there was no pressure, I just had to run and go. Now cultivating, that was a different story, all kinds of pressure on that. We used to grow, so inch to inch and a quarter I think is good. I never saw where 2 inches gave more nodulization. And the only way we were checking that was with tissue samples on nitrogen. I couldn't, so I'm not saying it won't do it, I'm just saying I couldn't verify. Yeah,
Do you think, the synthetic fungicides we're using as seed treatments and foliar late in the season is affecting our biology significantly?
I'm gonna say yes, well, it's affecting the biology, I'm gonna get some water. It is affecting the biology, but I don't know that it's detrimental. Because for me, because we have biology there. For somebody that doesn't have biology, then it is reducing whatever biology you have there, because it's trying to stop pathogens. So you got good pathogens, you got bad pathogens, so it's infecting both of them. For an area where you have a lot of biology, it's reducing it, but we're replenishing it right away. We're stopping that disease. Because I don't have a way to measure how to stop, Pythium is my #1 problem in corn, disease-wise. And I have yet to find, and we have tried nutritionally in furrow, on seed to reduce Pythium, and I can't do it. So the only way we've been able to do it is adding additional fungicides in furrow. We got, quote, the Cadillac seed treatment. That only lasts so long, and then, you know, when we get to that V2 stage, the seed treatment's played out, well, Pythium really affects it from V2 to V3. When you get that wet, cool rain, that stuff's moving through the soil, boom, it hits the roots, right there at the level. This year we're gonna do, I have yet to try Instago in furrow. We're gonna have comparisons. I don't know what we're gonna see, so ask me this question next year. So again, I'm in that little rowboat trying to catch up with the big ship. I like what I'm seeing. I mean, like what I hear about the Instago and furrow. What else? Yeah.
You say, AMS, do you guys not have access to calcium sulfate or pelletized gypsum over there?
We can get pelletized gypsum, but I can buy gypsum and, I can get gypsum, deliver a load of corn, bring a load of gypsum back. So, Pel gypsum, no read, and then you mentioned what was the other one? Nitrate?
AMS.
Oh.
AMS compared to, because I run a lot of CalSol just for the calcium and sulfate on beans and the corn side. Like I don't, we do a lot of fall spreading too. So some people run AMS. Our calcium levels are low anyway. I don't have a ton out there.
Well, I mean, my calcium levels are low, but my pH is where I want to be. I mean, calcium, we could be 600 parts per million calcium. I mean, that's not, you're probably 3 times that. Because it's all based on CEC. I mean, you're a lot higher CECs than we are, so you're clearly going to take more. And I agree with Thurman, the calcium isn't what's doing the pH, because if it was, gypsum would really crank up your pH. It doesn't influence it at all. But I like it. There were years we've just been trying to get more calcium in their plant, and worked with Philip. I've tried other fairy dust, just couldn't seem to do it. Gypsum seems to be the easiest way that we've been able to get more calcium in the plant. Yeah, and we're not running. That's just broadcast. It's just powder. It's cheap and very popular, and we get sulfur. See, we just need sulfur. It's big south of us because of peanuts. They like it when it's pegging. I like peanuts, so I like gypsum.
What about getting phosphate into the plant early? That's something that I can't figure out how to do that.
That is probably one of the bigger struggles. So, Invigor8's one. You can either do, what in furrow zinc product do y'all have? Is the BMZ a zinc in furrow?
No, not with the boron.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right, not with boron. So, zinc in furrow, zinc on the seed, zinc in the strip, zinc with phosphorus, BMZ spraying. What, you go back to, remember what nutrients get picked up and taken away in the grain, what nutrients stay on the fodder. So if you're having a problem, now y'all corn and beans or corn and corn? Any corn and corn?
Yeah, but we have both.
Okay. Take a few acres, just dump zinc out there, foliar, just make application. Every time you go in, just, he had a play farm. Just pick a field, play with it. A lot of it's staying in the fodder. So now this is a 2-year program. You done build it up, unless you want to do it in the fertilizer when you're broadcasting it. But let's take advantage of it when we're growing and let it reduce back in. Because half of it leaves with the grain, the other half stays in the fodder. So that's one way to do
Do
it.
you think I always like blanket like you do, I VRT, DAP, or phosphate, and Calsol and potash, I just blanket spread those. I mean, you think it would hurt for me to start throwing, 10, 15 pounds of zinc in when I do that, and just add that to the mix?
Not gonna hurt you, it might hurt his pocket. But no, y'all, I told you, whenever I ran phosphorus, I gotta have zinc to go along. I am dead set, I want 10 or tighter, 1 ratio.
Are you looking for that ratio in your tissue test?
If it's in the, I don't care what's in the soil. It's gotta be in the tissue. The tissue's telling me what is fine. Cause there are times your soil levels, y'all have super high phosphate levels and you can't get it in the tissue.
Yeah.
So the tissue is telling you what's going on now. Other people would say, oh, no, it's got, who's it, what's the other? Neil Kinsey. He's not a tissue plant guy, sample guy. He's a soil guy. Well, we can have great levels, but it's never in the tissue. I know farmers that got 400 and 500 parts per million of phosphorus and their tissue levels are running low. And this is in the Delmarva of Delaware and Maryland. It's there. So what they're doing is they're putting 40, 50 pounds of zinc sulfate out there to try, and then adding zinc on top, spraying zinc on to try to get it in the plant to help. Early is hard, but that's that seal and tile. Once you figure it out and what it takes, and like I said, y'all are cooler. Any way you can do to stimulate biology, that's going to only help your phosphorus level.
And when you're foliar feeding, he said like keep away from oxidates and stuff like that. Is there any when we're looking at ingredients, we should be like, oh, well, I'm not gonna throw that in there because it's got an oxidate or something like that, I know everybody's pretty much got some sort of the same stuff.
Yeah, well, when I think about, for Philip, how long have y'all had microberry? I don't know, a long time, right?
Yeah, I think that product was developed in, had to be around 2005.
So probably 7 years before that, we were using products, and now we transitioned to all microboom. I get it there was a time y'all only did the liquid, and then I begged you like I need to dry because I don't have room for another tank. And so now we got the dry again. On corn, 3 pounds of that throughout the growing season. On wheat, 1 to 2 pounds, and on soybeans, 1 to 2 pounds. Imagine that since 2005. What do you think we've done? You talk about balance. So there's a reason they have the percentages the way they do. Because when it's dry, it all mixes. Who cares? But there's a reason they've done something. They figured something out. And we've been doing that across all these acres for all these years. And their tissue levels you saw one of their soil samples for this year. I could imagine 4,000 soil samples to look at. 4,100 some samples. Like, holy smoke, it's a lot. I spent a lot of money. Think about that.
Jimmy don't pay for that?
I deal with a lab down in Southeast Ag Lab in Georgia. They'll come pull the 1 acre grids cheaper than I can just get the analysis run. And then they have their own lab. So we spent however much money for that, so 4,000 times. So we spent close to $40,000 for soil sampling. That's a pile of money. That's a tough check to write. But I've already saved that on the amount of lime out, because I thought we hadn't soil sampled in 2 years. We hadn't limed in 2 years because they ran out of lime. Because fertilizer went up, what did everybody want to do? They just go buy lime. Then the second year, then last year the quarries broke down and they ran out of lime again. So I hadn't limed in 2 years. And then now we said, well, I need to soil sample everything. I figured I was going to need 45 to 5,000 tons of lime. On our acreage this year, based on the soil samples, I only need 2,600 tons of lime. So I've just saved myself a boatload because I thought what I'd done. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, when we got them, like, how come I haven't limed in 2 years? We were running pHs in that 6.2 to 6.5 range. I should be needing a bunch of lime. And we're not. I don't know why. I don't understand why, because I know what we're putting out, I know what salts we're putting out, I know how much nitrogen we put out, I know what crops we're taking off. Like Thurman said, we can test all we can test, but we're still not going to know all the answers. Something's happened where I don't need all this lime. I'm grateful for it. But y'all, if I hadn't pulled soil samples, I'd have spent, I don't know, what do y'all pay a ton for lime? 40 or 50. So here I spent $9 a sample, and if I'd have spent, if I had 4,000 tons at 40 feet, I'd wrote a big check. Think about 1,500 tons, what that check is, how much I saved myself. That's just like my wife going shopping, said she saved me money. Yeah.
So go back to your late season feeding, and you're adding kernel weight.
Yep.
How late in the season have you been able to do all your applications and still affect that kernel weight? What stage of the plant do you feel is the cutoff for that?
You go, when we get to milk line half down, I don't know that I can influence it anymore there. Y'all,
But that's still pretty rapid influence.
we're still influencing it. Y'all, I'm not looking at something, but I got a text from a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. He sent me a podcast. And on the podcast was a friend of mine, thought he was a friend of mine. I still guess he is a friend. But on the podcast, he said that how he could influence corn after black layer. Now I'm like, game on. I'm going to learn something today. How in the world can you influence corn after black layer? I mean, I agree with what Thurman said. Does he like being called Josh or Thurman?
It's conflicting because we're both Josh.
Okay.
Just call him Thurman, that's what we're.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know, but when Thurman said that, for every day you get 4 bushels, black layer, you get 4 more bushels. So I'm like, what are we gonna do to influence crop after black layer? So I'm not a podcast listener. I'm not on social media, but I was listening to this podcast and I listened to it for 27 seconds and cut it off. He's full of crap. Because he said he made a spray 5 weeks before harvest. I think we're well before black layer 5 weeks before harvest to influence black layer. So I'm like, they just clearly mistitled it, or I don't know what he said. Just a bunch of crap. But once it's black layer, we're done. What he said about moisture and plant health, that's number one. Let's keep the plant green and let's not let it run out. So let's try to influence lycodin as much. Let's get as much starch as we can in there. Energy and sugars in there. Nutritionally, I have made applications of certain nutrients, half milk line. And do they all ROI? No.
Some of it depends on if you've got the moisture, capitalize on it too.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna do that if I don't have moisture. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, if it's a pig and you put lipstone on it, it's still a pig. I'm not gonna, if I don't have a pivot running or we got rain that airplane's not making, cause I don't have a drone yet. Just hadn't crashed one yet. You gotta learn. I know, I'm not trying to give him any ideas, Mr. Glenn. But, yeah, we gotta be willing to do something. I gotta have water. What else? How are we on time, Josh?
You're good.
You said you ran VitaNterra herbicide, fungicide. It's got seaweed in it, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of a natural PGR. Do you still run like Radiate and other PGRs with
No.
that?
No. On soybeans, we will do those type of PGRs in vegetative, and then when we get into reproductive, we don't do any of those after that. We pull it off.
Are you running VitaNterra?
VitaNterra, yeah, any of the
With your-
natural stuff.
Are you running that with herbicide also?
Yeah, VitaNterra, yeah, cause it'll help metabolize the chemistry.
Gotcha, so
On the-
are you running like Radiate with that pest?
Oh, no.
Okay,
Nope. When we're doing, that's on soybeans. Now in corn, we'll do VitaNterra early with that V3 primer pass. And then, you know, of course, we'll probably play with some other stuff and see which one works. So they gotta know, am I doing the right thing? And then we run it later on, VitaNterra. PGRs, synthetic PGRs, y'all, we gotta be careful with them. From a standpoint, I said, all right, can we overdo them? Yes. We have to be very cognizant of how often we do them, how frequent we do them. For like on a soybean plant, they're only gonna last roughly 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 nodes. That's all they're gonna last. Same thing with the VitaNterra. It's only gonna last so long. And then you're gonna have to make another spray. If you're trying to enhance retaining flowers and blooms, and all right, here's another cool exercise. Make a spray, y'all, does your wife make all your sandwiches and she unties the zip tie on the bread? Do y'all ever untie the zip tie on the bread? Or you got a regular zip tie in your shop, you know, for cables or hoses. Make a PGR spray, put a big flag out in your field, and then take a zip tie at the last node, not the last branch, but at the last node, put a zip tie around it. So make it a yellow one or red one, or take your wire tie from your bread and just put it on there, but don't get it real tight, just so it won't fall off. Then on a piece of paper say, okay, this day, this many nodes, this color zip tie. Then come back 2 weeks later and you make another spray, then put a different color zip tie on several plants, because you'll never find that one soybean plant, but put it on several other ones in a row and mark it, and then do it 2 weeks later, and then you have some where you didn't do it, you gotta have a control, and look at how many blooms and pods, clusters you have where you made those sprays versus where you didn't. We're not gonna shorten nodes. Some people say, well, we can shorten the plant. I'm not saying you're shortening a soybean plant, but you'll see you're retaining more pods at those nodes. That's another little cool exercise to try that. I can go in somebody's field where they've been using some synthetic PGRs and come pretty close within 4 days of saying when they made their last application of it, based on the number of fruits that they have, 5 or 6 or 3 on pods, clusters. I mean, 3 pods in a cluster on a node. When you get 6, 7, 8, 9, that's a cluster. I can come pretty darn close to not saying, hey, this is when you made your spray. So that's a pretty neat little exercise. That's why earlier, we need to focus, that VitaNterra early on soybeans and corn, that's setting that reproductive stage, that's setting that fruit set down low, so we can get that cluster starting to form, because on a V6, V7, whatever, there's no such thing as V9. It's a 9th trifoliate, because we should be blooming at V6 or V7. So if we can get that PGR when we're there, we're setting flowers down lower and we're gonna retain more of them. And that's your money crop. The top crop, that's just what y'all get to buy your new pickup with and take your wife on vacation, that top third. The bottom third, that's what's paying all your fixed costs. The middle third's allowing you to pay for your nutrient, write the check for the bill and all that. But that top third's just a bonus. We need that bottom third. And same with corn. All right, 2 years ago, anybody here use airplanes? Helicopters? I want the first load of the day. I know where that guy likes to drink, what he likes to drink. I know where his wife likes to go out to dinner. I don't want him to drink before he flies for me, and I want him to take his wife out to dinner. So I get his first load of the day. One day I said, hey, I want your first load for the next 2 weeks. I got 13 out of 14. One time he was stuck in North Carolina, he couldn't get up to spray for me. So I did some synthetic PGRs late every day for 2 weeks. Just a sniff. I shut my corn down. Cost me money, y'all. I learned something. We've done it the same thing with just nutrition. Whew, that's good. But stay away from PGRs. You go too long, too late. So the natural synthetic ones, we did that with synthetics. So now I have another goal. That's why I want a drone. So I can do it. It's a whole lot cheaper if I crash my own drone than paying this airplane guy. Try the natural ones with the seaweed. Can we do this? Can we do something? There. All right? Yes, sir.
Do you have you used any of the short stature corn or?
What was it? Who was the one that said they had Pioneer short stature corn? What did this guy here?
I've seen it, but.
I've seen it. I have, David has begged for short stature corn. I can't get it. So when he said he had it, I'm like, tips off to him. I don't know how he's getting it, because if I can't get it, it ain't out. Right? I've gone too long, I think. Y'all have enjoyed it. Hopefully you gleaned something that you at least try on your operation. I want to thank Philip and Josh for having me come. It's been a long time since I've been part of a Genesis Ag meeting, because they've had the A team before. They had Paul Bodenstein was here and other presenters. So it was kind of cool to come back, see some familiar faces and then a lot of new faces. But if you haven't tried their products, take it from me, you ought to at least stick your big toe in it, take a look at it. And I know, create relationships. I've been working with Philip for, like you said, 25 years. I didn't realize I was getting that old. I know you were getting that old, but I didn't realize I was getting that old. But it has been fun. So thank y'all, and God bless y'all. And hopefully, since we've been doing this, the market has done one thing. It's gone up. Let's keep doing that. Let's work that way. All right? Be safe.